I think of the orchestra as being kind of the engine room, of a performance, the energy and the spark and the inspiration, the push, if you like, for the whole performance is coming from the orchestra.
When you speak about the Royal Opera House Orchestra, we have nearly 2 orchestras. We have, I suppose, just over 100 players. And on most nights there are probably between 60 and 80 people in the pit. Because I think one of the important things about the Opera House is it tries to stay open at least 6 nights of the week. It's got to get all that material rehearsed. And the orchestra play for both the opera and the ballet. So, I mean, they are in many ways the most in-demand part of the house.
How are you doing? Right, there'll be more stuff. The orchestra operations team is in charge of setting up the orchestra, moving the instruments that need to be moved from place to place. It's our job to make sure that the orchestra is set up, ready to rehearse on time and with everything they need.
They only want different units.
We can often be seen sort of lugging a double bass in the lift or up the stairs when we're rehearsing in a room other than the orchestra pit.
I'm Tim Hewitt-Jones. I'm a cellist in the orchestra. I've been in the orchestra for 28 years now. The orchestra has 4 main sections. There's strings with violins, first and seconds.
The violin players, for example, in our orchestra pit sit on risers to make their sound bloom a little bit more over the pit rail.
Violas.
Our viola players, for example, like to sit on a very particular seat because the weight of the viola holding it up means that they need a little bit more support when they're playing.
Cellos and basses.
Main issues we have with the cellos and basses is having to carry them to wherever they need to go. They're particularly heavy things to be able to move around.
The woodwinds, flutes, oboes, clarinets and bassoons.
The woodwind players are often the superstars of the orchestra, if you will. They're the ones whose beautiful tunes you'll hear coming over the pit rail the most often. So we have to make sure that they're as happy as they can be to make their beautiful music.
The brass.
Made up of trumpets, trombones and French horns. Tend to make the most noise, but have the opportunity to sneak in and out of the pit.
And the percussion, which of course starts with the timpani.
With the timpani and percussion section, they're the section that my team, the orchestra operations team, work absolutely hand in hand with. We're often moving timpani, large bass drums, glockenspiels, xylophones, marimbas, vibraphones, you name it, all around the building.
And then there are also more exotic instruments such as the wind machine or the thunder sheet, chains and things which are used off stage for special effects.
The use of offstage musicians in opera is one of the most sort of magical parts of, I think, the whole discipline. You'll be sat there in a show and you'll hear this ethereal sound and you'll have no idea where it's coming from. Lohengrin is one of the busiest shows in terms of offstage banda. There may be an extra 15 trumpet players playing at the same time. There are 4 trumpeters that play from the director's box. They play on very specific instruments called herald trumpets that have a standard 3-valve section and a very, very long bell section to give the real fanfare-like sounds that Wagner was looking for. The stage bands have their own individual conductor, normally a member of our music staff team here at the Royal Opera House. It's the second conductor's job to follow the tempo of the main conductor that they can see on a very small television screen that's in front of them. They can also hear the music from the orchestra pit coming over a set of headphones that they'll be wearing. At the same time as that, they'll be following a score that's in front of them and telling the players how many bars they've got left before they have to play. Our relationship with the conductor of the orchestra starts normally way before the orchestra starts to rehearse. We'll be in touch with them 3-4 months in advance, trying to work out exactly how they want their orchestra set up. Each conductor has a very specific idea about where the violin should be going, whether the first and second violin should be sat together, whether they should be split on either side of the orchestra, where the drums should go, where the brass should be positioned. So at the moment we're setting up for Lulu. Lulu is a very, very large orchestra, very large modern orchestra, with what we'd say would be triple woodwind, so that's 3 each of flutes, oboes, clarinets, bassoons, but with an extra clarinet and an extra saxophone. For this show, where we have the violas on the outside and the cellos in the middle, we have to make sure that we kind of interweave the violas and cellos to make sure they all fit comfortably into the pit. 4 French horns, 3 trumpets, 3 trombones and tuba. Very large percussion section of vibraphone, xylophone, drums, cymbals, everything you can imagine, plus a very large string section of 14 first violins, 12 seconds, 10 violas, 8 cellos and 6 basses. We've also got grand piano and harp in this piece as well.
While the singers are working on their staging, I start to work with the orchestra. Working on technical matters, working on an interpretation, tempi, that means what speeds you need to agree upon or convince each other of, and trying to start to coalesce different ideas.
At 6 o'clock we'll be back into the pit to change the setup for the evening's performance, normally within an hour. Pretty frantic hour. There'll be maybe 2 or 3 of us working to change that orchestration around very quickly. So Lulu has an orchestra of around 90 players. In the La Sylphide triple bill, the middle piece of the 3 features a solo piano which sits in the middle of the orchestra pit. Now what we do is we set that grand piano from the start of the performance, setting up the music, putting the conductor's score on his music stand. At 7:05 the audience start coming in, at which point the orchestra will come in, start tuning up, practicing those little bits they want to make sure they get absolutely right.
The leader at the very beginning of each evening, of course, will ask the first oboe to play the A, so we all try and adjust our strings and then we work the other strings from that A. There's a mix there of feeling that we are at one with the stage, but at the same time, I suppose you could say that we're less exposed to view. But that enables us to get on with the business in hand, which is simply just focusing very hard on our individual parts to contribute to the whole theatrical experience. But that wonderful feeling of fulfilment when you feel the whole house is erupting with fervour at this fantastic music.